and my job and all that I do, all throughout my public career, I've stood up for the rights of New Yorkers and Americans, and I will not be deterred.
That's a lie.
And I will not be deterred.
You're hearing New York Attorney General Letitia James addressing a crowd of supporters who greeted her with cheers outside a Virginia courtroom on Friday. James pleaded not guilty to federal mortgage fraud charges President Trump encouraged the Justice Department to bring against her. She was arraigned after being indicted by a grand jury earlier this month. With us to discuss is criminal defense attorney Ron Chapman. Ron, good morning. Welcome back.
Good morning.
I want some help breaking this all down. According to the indictment, the property was not occupied or used by James as a secondary residence. Instead, she used it as a rental investment property, renting it to the property to a family of three, I believe, her great niece and her great niece's family. Talk to me about the strength of these charges.
Here's the problem with federal statutes in the United States right now. They allow broad conduct to be criminalized. And in fact, in the Supreme Court last year, they removed the materiality requirement, meaning that if you make any false statement related to something like this, it doesn't necessarily need to have an impact to the bank. It doesn't necessarily need to be material. It just needs to be false. And so the problem here with Letitia James is these broad statutes that she has somewhat advocated for and promoted are being turned against her in the sense that there's sort of a no harm, no foul argument that Abby Lowell seems to be making. But in reality, the statement appears to be false. It was a second property, but it was rented out by her to somebody else. And that's enough for conviction according to the elements and according to the Supreme Court.
That's very interesting that you're saying that some of the laws that she brought up are being used against her. James is a longtime target of Trump. This goes back years, who even called, quote, guilty as hell. The trial is now set for January 26th. This week, James's defense team filed a motion to dismiss, saying acting U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan, who you mentioned, had no authority to bring the charges in this case. You're a defense attorney, Ron. Is that reasoning legitimate? How likely is a dismissal?
You know, for the sake of my clients, I really wanted this motion to have some legs, but I spent a long time diving into it. And honestly, I can't believe that an attorney would actually file this motion. When you specifically look at the statute, the 120 days for appointment is tied to the new incoming United States attorney, not to the attorney general's appointment. And so just to break that down plainly, when there is a vacancy in an office, there's 120 days that you can have an interim person serve before there has to be someone confirmed. When you look at this motion, it completely ignores that fact. And in fact, there's an Office of Legal Counsel memo that specifically talks about this. So it's going to be easy for Halligan to defend her appointment. And this motion honestly didn't have enough credibility to even be filed in a federal court, in my opinion.
Looking at the bigger picture, New York's Attorney General is the third prominent Trump critic to be arraigned just in the last 3 weeks. What does this case mean for Trump's other critics that are also facing charges, Ron?
I think the important thing for us to do, like we do in all criminal cases, is look at the facts case by case. We need to look at each individual indictment and see. In the case of John Bolton, I don't think anybody could arguably say that there is an attack on John Bolton. He's writing classified memos. This is the same stuff that we saw Petraeus indicted for and others. In the case of James, sure, this conduct we don't usually see resulting in an indictment until we saw it happen to Donald Trump in New York. I think that people have opened a door very wide that is now being used against them. And that's really the problem that we have here. They've made these indictments possible. And now the tables are turned.
Ronald Chapman, we always appreciate your expertise on this. Thank you.
Thank you.